Sacher Torte is all about the marriage between apricot, chocolate cake, and a rich chocolate ganache. It was first created in Austria almost 200 years ago. It's since been exported, it's become famous all over the world, such a classic in patisserie, but you can still actually go to Hotel Sacher in Vienna, where it was first created, and enjoy a slice of the real McCoy in their amazing coffee house. If you're ever in Vienna, you must go and try a slice. Today I'm going to show you how to make these gorgeous little mini versions. They don't need to be kept in the fridge, so they're perfect for bringing to friends, events, parties. They also make the most wonderful little dessert served with some unsweetened whipped cream, like Sacher Torte traditionally is. They're nice and simple to make. Let me show you how. Firstly, make a French meringue by whisking egg whites on a low speed until they're very thick and foamy. Then sprinkle in your sugar, about a third at a time, and whisk for a minute or so before sprinkling in the next third. Once your sugar is all added, you can turn the speed up to high and keep whisking until it forms these firm peaks. Then whisk together your butter and powdered sugar until smooth like this, and then add in your egg yolks, a couple at a time, whisking well between each addition. Once the yolks are all incorporated, start drizzling in your melted chocolate. You need to make sure this feels just barely warm to touch before you start pouring it in. And lastly, you just need to fold in your flour and your French meringue. So you're going to do this by firstly folding in about a third of your meringue, and once that's more or less incorporated, but really quite roughly, as you can see, then you want to sprinkle in a couple of spoons of flour and then fold that in the same way. And then you just want to keep repeating, so adding about a third of the meringue and then a couple of spoons of flour until you get to the stage where it's all combined, but it's still nice and full of volume like this. And then pour it into a baking tin lined with a piece of baking paper. Spread it out firstly, and then level it out, trying to get it as flat and as level as you can. And then it goes straight into the oven to bake, with the door wedged slightly open for the first 15 minutes. You can see here I'm using a spatula for this. We can then crack on with the sugar syrup by stirring together sugar and water over a medium heat. Once the sugar's dissolved, allow it to boil for 1 minute before removing from the heat, and once it's cool, you can then add in some Kirsch liqueur. Don't be tempted to leave this out. You won't be able to taste alcohol, but it subtly imparts the most wonderful, sophisticated flavour and really brings your Sachers up a notch. Once your sponge is completely cool, remove it from the tin by flipping it upside down. You can then carefully peel off the paper, and using a round cookie cutter, we're going to cut out little rounds. You can make these any size you like. I like this size as I find it perfect for one person for a dessert or a cake. You can get 12 Sachers out of this size sponge, nice and comfortably, but by all means you could use a smaller cutter if you'd like to make them into petit fours, or a larger cutter if you'd like them to be larger. Just bear in mind that the quantity of ganache, glaze and syrup may need to be adjusted slightly. Then, using a pastry brush, dip it into your syrup and brush the tops and sides of each disc of sponge. So once each one is nicely coated, we can crack on with the apricot layer. So stir your apricot jam with a little water over the heat, then allow it to boil for 1 minute before straining it and stirring it whilst it cools to keep it nice and smooth and free of lumps. Once it's just slightly warm to touch and nice and smooth, brush it over the top and sides of each Sacher. Be generous as you want a nice thick layer, but also be sure to smooth it out slightly with your brush so that you get a nice smooth finish when you coat them with ganache. So once they're all coated, you can go back over them and coat them with a little more if you like, and then leave them to rest for at least half an hour or so before we finish them off. So once you're ready to finish them off, make a quick chocolate ganache by finely chopping your chocolate, bringing your cream to the stage just before it boils and pouring it over the chocolate. You'll find a separate video linked below where I go into detail about chocolate ganache, but you then just need to take a small whisk and start binding the two together by making small circular motions. If you want these Sachers to be really outstanding, I can't emphasize enough the importance of using the best quality chocolate and the best quality apricot jam you possibly can. So once it's completely smooth and homogeneous, then you want to pour it straight away over your little Sachers. Then just tap your cooling rack a few times against the counter and leave them for a few minutes before transferring them to a plate, or I like to transfer them onto these little discs of gold card. And for the very last step, just pipe a little S onto each one in melted chocolate. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this one, and I'll see you next time.